Okay, I'm going to start the webinar. We will get started shortly. We're just waiting for everyone to get on. Okay, we'll get started in just another minute here. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us for our Teaching Tuesdays every Tuesday in May. This is the QR code to all of the presentations. I will be sending out to everyone's email afterwards too, but if you want to follow along, there's the QR code. Today we have Jason Drury presenting from Placer County, Maria Chavez from Ventura, Maria Filmer from Nevada County, Kristen Green from Sacramento County, and Rosa Mraz on our Q&A for the last hour. So these are our people. Thank you so much for helping us out. It'll be every 30 minutes, and then the last hour is Q&A. So please type your questions in the Q&A. The chat is disabled, and they will be answered live from 11 to 12. If we don't get to them, we'll bring them over to our last session on the fourth Tuesday. Again, all sessions are being recorded and will be emailed out within 1 month. And we have some disclaimers on there. Please check with your monitoring authority. And then CTC has purview. So thanks again for joining us today. I'm going to pop up the first presentation for Jason here. Second here. Okay, Jason, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Drury. I'm the Credential Analyst for Placer County Office of Education, and I will be giving the first presentation this morning on 41-4 application and fingerprints. Next. Our focus today will be on the 41-4 application, 41LS, and fingerprints. Next. A quick application overview. So 41-4 paper application may be used to apply for or renew any credential, certificate, or permit issued by CTC. Now, for those with a clear credential or a 30-day sub-permit, they can just renew online. They wouldn't use the paper application process. A separate application form and fee is required for each credential type being applied for. Example, I'm coming from out of state. I have a single subject in math and a multiple subject I want to bring over. That would be 2 separate forms and 2 separate fees. If I'm coming over with the multiple subject with EL authorization and I want to add a supplementary, that would be 1 form and 1 fee because it's 1 credential type. Applications with crossouts, whiteouts, or scratchouts will not be accepted. Even if an applicant puts their initials above an item they corrected, it still will not be accepted. Application processing time is 50 business days, and it can be sooner, and it can be later if you get delays. Only a complete application will be processed by the commission. If they receive a packet that is missing a signature, a date of birth, social security number, that will delay that processing time and it will no longer be held by the 50 business days. So attention to detail is very important. And the 41-4 application is not to be used for variable return waivers. That is a separate form. The majority of paper application fees is $100. A check or money order made out to the commission on teacher credentialing. Never send cash. And fees vary depending on the credential or permit type you're applying for, and that can be found in leaflet CL 659. If you're sending multiple applications in 1 envelope, you can send 1 check to cover all those fees. So in regards to a 41-4 application presentation, we could go down a rabbit hole with many different topics, such as CTC reject letters, you receiving a letter late from CTC, applications never received, the name on the 41-4 doesn't match what's on the website, pending additional evaluation status, supporting documents, and the list goes on. Next slide, please. This is the latest version of the paper application by CTC, dated on 9/22. Next. Next. All right, let's start with the file box. File box is located in the upper right-hand corner of the application, and it is to be completed by a California employee agency or college that is assisting an educator with an application. When this box is filled out, it tells CTC that the program or LEA has verified all the documents that are included in this packet. And an issuance date can be requested of up to 3 months or 90 days prior to CTC receiving the application. Next. Section 1, personal information. Applicants must complete all required fields marked with an asterisk. And this is very important because if one of those items is missing, that's when you get the incomplete CTC letter. Applicants must have a social security number or an ITIN to apply for any certification from CTC. All former maiden names should be used. And you should use a valid email address, one that you're going to check regularly. We always suggest our applicants use a personal email because they check those more than they would a work email. The gender identity, sexual orientation, and demographic data is all voluntary and is kept confidential per coded correspondence 1903. And CTC will not return an application if these fields are not complete. The county and district of employment is not required, but if they're noted, they will be CC'd with any communication related to the application. This doesn't always happen, but we still fill it in. Section 2, application type requested. Now we're telling CTC what type of credential we're applying for. In this section, there's a drop down with a couple of options. Add a subject or authorization to an existing document, change of restriction, request an extension by appeal, apply for a new credential permit, renew a credential or permit, or upgrade a clear credential or a higher level child development permit. Now in this dropdown, if you don't see what you want to apply for, there's an option for other. And then to the right of that, you're going to write in what you want to apply for. For example, administrative credential remaining years, or to remove an RC code. Next. Section 3, choose a document type. Applicants should only make one selection in this section. We see it a lot where people mark 2 because it gets confusing. But if CTC sees 2 marked, they're going to expect to see 2 separate fees and 2 separate applications. And then if they don't know what you're applying for, they're going to send you the CTC letter saying, what do you want? Selections with an asterisk can only be requested by a California local education agency, and the file box must be completed. Next. Section 4, select authorization subject areas. Now we're drilling down to the subject we want on that credential or the disability area we're looking for. The drop-down menu is used to select authorization or subject area being requested. This section is not used for substitute permits or child development permits. So if you marked either of those in section 3, you will not fill anything out in this box. If you're requesting more than one subject area, it can be listed in the comments section on page 5. So if you have a single subject in English and art, you would use the drop down to put English, and on page 5, you would write in art. Next. Section 5, child development permit renewal self-verification. All child development permits higher than associate teacher will use this section to verify they have completed the 105 hours of professional growth. Next. Section 6, professional fitness questions. This section pertains to an applicant's background and history. If an applicant marks yes in this section, they do not need to provide all the court documents, only if their infraction has already been cleared by DPP. All they would do is write an explanation on a professional fitness explanation form, OAEF. Now, applications that are signed to the Division of Professional Practices are not bound by that 50 days processing time. And that's why you see our friend here, because we all know what that means when an application goes to DPP. And applicants can contact DPP directly at dppinfo@ctc.ca.gov. And can you go back one? Sorry about that. I put applicants in bold because DPP will not communicate with anyone other than the applicant. Thanks. Next. Section 7, child abuse, neglect, and reporting. All applicants must agree to be a mandated reporter. If you do not mark this section and you mail in your application, CTC will consider it incomplete. Next, please. Section 8, employee agency information. LA is looking to employ an applicant on a 1-year non-renewable credential or one of these emergency permits must complete Section 8. You'll put the county CDS code, you'll put your school district CDS code, and if you're a charter, you'll put your name in that bottom line. The file box must also be completed. These permits, and that's the reason why this section has to be completed, because these permits are restricted to the LEA. Next. Section 9, oath and affidavit. Applicants must complete all portions of this section and to certify under penalty of perjury that everything provided in this application packet is truthful to the best of their knowledge. Some common mistakes seen by CTC are applicants write in their date of birth instead of they signed, and applicants write in the country instead of the county where the application was signed. And all applications must be signed in wet ink or use an approved electronic signature per CIA 22-01. Next slide, please. Common and additional subject requests. This section is primarily used to request section 4. Applicants can specify the option or route which they're applying. And it can be used if application is sent in.
Jason,
yes.
You're cutting in and out. I'm not sure if you're close to your computer or not. You're kind of getting coming in and out, so. You're on mute now. Go ahead, try it again.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Bear with us, everyone.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good now. Thank you. If you could start over on this slide, that would be great.
Yes. Sorry about that, everyone. So
Thank you.
comments and additional subject requests. This section is primarily used to request additional subjects from section 4. Applicants can specify the option or route in which they are applying. And it can be used if the application is being sent in with a name change form, or if you're sent in multiple applications. We like to put notes in there to assist CTC, so we kind of help them give some direction. It helps with the processing time, we believe. I'm not sure if it works, but we still put notes in there for them. Next. So common errors on the 41-4 application. Oath and affidavit section is not complete, or does not have a wet signature, or does not have the CTC approved electronic signature. Missing SSN, individual tax ID or date of birth. SSN or date of birth or name does not match the educator's record on the commission database. Very important. Or the incorrect fee amount. Next. So CTC has created a new web form, and they're encouraging everyone to use it because they believe it'll help reduce errors, because it doesn't allow the applicant to move from one section to another until everything is complete. And you can't complete it until you have everything filled out. The file box will show up after it is printed on the upper right-hand corner, and the application will need to be signed after it is printed, and it's mailed in just like a regular 41-4 paper application. Next, please. And this is what the new 41-4 web form looks like. All right, so now let's talk fingerprints. Ed codes 44340 and 44341 require that an individual who seeks any document from CTC receive background clearance from the Department of Justice and the FBI. Also, any individual who's received fingerprint clearance through another agency prior still needs to get fingerprinted through CTC. We get asked this question all the time in our fingerprint consortium. Someone comes in, they were fingerprinted 3 days ago for a school district or a volunteer or something. Their fingerprints came back clear. They asked, can we use these fingerprints instead of doing it again? And we say no, because agencies cannot share information. Next. California residents must use the 41LS, and standard processing time can be from 3 to 7 days. Out-of-state, out-of-country residents must use fingerprint cards, FD258, and standard processing time for those is around 10 to 12 weeks. Now, when I say standard processing time, this is what CTC normally sees, but they can take longer. It just depends. The CTC has no control of the DOJ's processing time. And applicants who have used a live scan form may go to the DOJ website and check their fingerprint status. Next. New fingerprints are required if all educators' documents have expired for 18 months or longer, and that's per coded 12-10. So if an educator's documents have expired more than 18 months, CTC drops their prints, and that's why it's required for them to get new fingerprints. Name, date of birth, and SSN under the educator's fingerprints results must match the name, date of birth, and social security number currently listed in their profile. We tell our educators anytime they come in, always check your profile, make sure everything's up to date. You get married, you change your name, anything like that. Fingerprint errors can be caused by the applicant or the fingerprint operator and will delay the issuance of a requested document. Next. This is the current 41LS. Must use a legal name at all times. Must be complete. Verify information the live scan agent had entered is accurate. So when we have our applicants come in for our substitute consortium, before we submit their fingerprints, we have them review some information on the screen to make sure it's correct, because we had one where a social security number was incorrect and it created a delay of up to 3 months. Supplemental agency employer section is optional. And the applicant must submit a copy with their paper application. Do not mail to CTC unless requested. Next. Live scan information. Accuracy is important in the prevention of fingerprint delays. If items are entered correctly, a new print will be required. CTC cannot correct any issues related to the 41 LS. All applicant data must match their legal name, the name on the application, the name they use for their fingerprints. If government ID is used at the live scan differs from their current legal name, it can cause multiple delays. And the applicant should keep a copy of the completed live scan form. Next. Fingerprint card information. Fingerprint card form FD258 must be on the same card stock provided by CTC. And what this means is, if you go to the FBI website and you download a copy of the FD258, it's going to be printed on regular paper. CTC will not accept that. And you can order fingerprint cards from CTC. I have never done that. We have never dealt with anyone with fingerprint cards, but that's the process. Impressions must be rolled by a certified fingerprint roller. Must submit 2 hard cards with the fee and application fee. Cannot be folded. And a social security number must be included for results to load into the CTC database. Next, please. This is a fingerprint card. Fingerprint cards are legal documents and CTC cannot alter, add, or remove any information from them. If data is missing or not legible, the cards will be destroyed. DOJ charges CTC for each card, $49 fee is required on top of your application fee. Sections marked with an X are required. Sorry, next. Fingerprint results information. Electronically uploaded daily from DOJ to CTC online database. Results are not immediate. Time is needed to review data before any application is processed. A small percentage of data does not upload and must be researched. If the SSN is missing, incorrect, or other required information is not submitted correctly, the fingerprints are deemed invalid and another print will be required. Next, please. If an applicant's having issues with CTC and fingerprints, they would contact the fingerprint team at fingerprints@ctc.ca.gov. And when contacting by email, you can provide your full legal name, date of birth, last 4 of a social security number, and the email address on record with the commission. CTC will not communicate with an educator if the email address does not match. CTC will not communicate with an employer, friend, psychic, credentials tech, credentials specialist, credentials analyst, credentials manager, and the list goes on. They will only communicate with the educator. Next, please. Report of arrest and prosecution sheets, or rap sheets. Subsequent rap sheets are received from DOJ as long as fingerprints are current. Remember, after the 18 months, they drop off. That's why they need to get reprinted with CTC. And if rap sheets are reviewed by Division of Professional Practices, DPP. Any questions regarding rap sheets should be sent to dppinfo@ctc.ca.gov. And just like fingerprints, they will only communicate with the educator. They will not communicate with anyone else. Next, please. And that concludes my presentation this morning. I appreciate all of your time and thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Please continue to type in your questions on the Q&A. And then we will transition over to Maria in just a couple of minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Please do not raise hands. We won't be able to answer any of the questions until the Q&A comes up. And it looks like we're having problems with the tiny URL with the QR code. So another link has been dropped in, and everyone will receive via email copies of the presentations after this too. So please bear with us for tough technical difficulties, but everything is being worked through. So thank you very much. And so next up is Maria Chavez from Ventura. She's going to be presenting on basic skills, subject matter, and evaluating transcripts. Maria, I'll go ahead and let you take it away. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome to Basic Skills Requirement, Subject Matter, and Evaluating Transcripts section of this webinar. My name is Maria Chavez, and I am the Credentials Analyst for Ventura County Office of Education. Let's begin with Basic Skills Requirement, also known as BSR. The California Code and the Title V regulations specify that applicants for a credential, certificate, or permit to serve in the California Public Schools must meet basic skills requirement before the credential, certificate, or permit is granted. The Commission does not initially issue documents to teacher candidates unless they have demonstrated that they have satisfied the basic skills requirement as provided in California Education Code Section 44252 and 44252.6. There is one temporary exception to meeting BSR. Assembly Bill 1397 temporarily waives the basic skills requirement for the issuance of an emergency 30-day substitute permit from January 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024. After the July 1st, 2024 date, basic skills proficiency will once again be required for the initial issuance of the emergency 30-day sub-teaching permit. If the document was initially issued under this bill, basic skills will remain waived for that document. This means that the educator will be able to renew the permit without basic skills. It is important to note that this flexibility only applies to the emergency 30-day sub-teaching permit. This waiver does not apply to any other document that requires a BSR. Also know that each district can determine if the BSR is required as a condition of employment. Assembly Bill 130 was signed by the governor in July of 2021. Provisions of this bill created two new options for credential candidates to meet the basic skills and subject matter requirement. The two new options are through coursework and through the combination of coursework and exams. Let's talk about these options to meet the BSR. Option 1 is passing the CBEST. Option 2 is through coursework. 3 is the combination of coursework and exams. Option 4, a score of 3 or higher on AP exams. We will talk later on these and which exams. 5 is passing the CSET. Candidates must pass all 3 of the multiple subject CSETs and the writing skills exam. Option 6, a qualifying score on SAT or ACT. Option 7 is passing CSU early assessment or CSU placement exams. And option 8 is basic skills exam from another state. You can find detailed information on the CTC website. Let's discuss the California Basic Educational Skills Test, or best known as the CBEST. This exam is transmitted electronically to the CTC from Pearson Evaluation Systems, and it only needs to be passed once. You must score 41 in each of the sections of reading, writing, and mathematics. However, a score as low as 37 on an individual section is acceptable if the total scale score is at least 123. Passing scores remain valid indefinitely. The CBEST can be taken in person or online proctored. Another option is meeting BSR through qualifying coursework. Courses must have a B or better. Know that a B-, passing, or credit are acceptable. Courses must have been taken at a regionally accredited college or university. Courses must be 3-semester units or 4-quarter units. A course that does not fall within these areas may still qualify with a letter of explanation. The registrar must explain how a course qualifies to meeting the basic skill. Here's a chart of the courses that are required. The courses to meet the reading include, but not limited to, are critical thinking, literature, philosophy, reading, rhetoric, or textual analysis. The courses to meet the writing requirement include, but not limited to, composition, English, rhetoric, written communication, or writing. And the courses to meet the math requirement include, but are not limited to, algebra, geometry, mathematics, quantitative reasoning, or statistics. One course can cover 2 sections, such as the rhetoric and critical thinking course on this chart. These courses meet both the reading and the writing requirement. Some universities will write a letter for the student where one course covers both areas. Most courses to meet reading come from the English department, but some courses can come from the philosophy department, and most philosophy courses cover reading. Just because a course comes from the English department, it does not necessarily mean that it will meet the reading requirement. One example is speech. Speech does not cover reading. On this slide is a link to the Basic Skills Requirement Evaluation Worksheet, which can be found on the CTC website. If you see the magic words like critical thinking or rhetoric, no matter what department it comes from, you can use it to meet reading. The same with writing. You can find these in other departments, such as in the business department. As long as you see the word writing, it meets the requirement. Courses that we typically use to satisfy the math portion, such as statistics, which are found in other departments, can be used. If the course is not clear-cut and the educator insists on using it, then the educator will have to provide a letter from the college or university stating that the course meets the specific area of the basic skill. The BSR can be met through a combination of applicable courses and qualifying exams. Both commission-approved programs and the commission can determine basic skills proficiency through this combination option. The mixing and matching is acceptable with the exception of out-of-state basic skills exams. Form 41-BSR is available on the SIG. This form is not required if CBEST or CSET scores are being used to meet the requirement. The most common combination is the coursework and exams, such as the CBEST plus coursework. One thing to keep in mind is that when you are mixing coursework and a CBEST score, the CBEST test score for the area being covered must be 41. The flexibility, allowing a score to be as low as 37, like we previously discussed, does not exist when you are combining coursework and exam. Another acceptable combination to meet BSR is the combination of SAT scores plus coursework. You can find a guidance chart for mix and BSR options on the CTC website. AP exams. Students who achieve 3 or higher on the AP exams may use the scores to meet the basic skills. To meet reading and writing, a score of 3 or higher in an English exam, such as the AP English Language and Composition, or AP English Literature and Composition, is required. To meet the math requirement, a score of 3 or higher in a math exam, such as the AP Calculus, AB, Calculus BC, or AP Statistics, is required. These are acceptable on transcripts if specific score is noted. Passing of the California subject examinations for teachers, or CSET, multiple subjects plus the writing skills examination. On this chart, the top blue section are the test numbers and the bottom white section are the test scores. The multiple subject CSETs include the subtest 101, 214, and 103. The writing skills examination is the subtest 142. Passage scores for any of these tests is 220. The CSET scores are transmitted electronically to the CTC from Pearson evaluation systems. Each test in the program is designed to measure a specific set of knowledge and skills. Individuals must have a score of 570 in math and 560 in reading and writing if the test was taken after March 2016. If the test was taken before March 2016, the qualifying math score is 550 and the critical reading or verbal must be 500. For the ACT exam, the qualifying scores are 23 in math and 22 in English. Individuals can visit the College Board website to obtain official score reports. These are acceptable on transcripts if specific score is noted. Student's name must appear on the report. The CSU Early Assessment or CSU Placement Exams option. This option is rarely used to satisfy BSR. It is acceptable to submit entry-level mathematics or ELM and English Placement Test or EPT on official university letterhead and must be signed. Passing these exams is enough to meet the BSR and the scores remain valid indefinitely. Visit ctc.ca.gov for more details. Out-of-state basic skills examinations. The Praxis Pre-Professional Skills Test is the most common out-of-state exam submitted. The report must show passed as the sample shows. Another acceptable report is if it shows passed and not passed like the sample prior. There you go. Thank you. Okay, next. These are two samples of BSR worksheets which can be found on the SIG. The form on the left is to be used by entities that have CTC-approved programs such as induction or preliminary credential programs. The form on the right is for districts and counties. You can use them as is with the CTC logo, or counties can create their own, inserting their own logo. This is not an official form and is just to be used as guidance. This form will be fully reviewed by the CTC. We move on to subject matter requirement. California Education Code requires that all candidates for a teaching credential must demonstrate they are proficient in the subject matter area of their intended credential. Assembly Bill 130, signed into law on July 9, 2021, brought significant changes to credential requirements in California. It created new options for credential candidates to meet the subject matter requirements. This bill expands the options to meet the subject matter requirement, allowing for the usage of successful completion of coursework verified by a commission-approved program. These changes aim to provide flexibility and support for educators navigating the educational challenges. The driving force for this Assembly bill was to reduce the heavy reliance on standardized tests and to recognize the importance of college coursework to demonstrate subject matter competence. The options for subject matter proficiency are: 1, passage of a subject matter examination, such as the CSET, a bachelor's degree or higher aligning with the content area, 3, successful completion of coursework, combination of methods, and 5, completion of a CTC-approved subject matter program. Let's review each option. Option 1 is the passage of a subject matter examination. CSAT. Candidates can demonstrate subject matter proficiency by passing the California Subject Examination for Teachers, or CSAT, specific to their credential area. The CSAT are a set of tests designed to assess the subject matter competence of candidates. These exams are developed by the CTC and administered by Pearson. The number of CSATs required depends on the content area of the credential being sought. For example, to meet subject matter competency for foundational level general science, only one CSAT is required. To meet this requirement for English, a total of 4 CSATs are required. CSATs are free of charge for California residents who register for the exams until June 20, 2024, and tests can be taken within a year. Below is a link for more information on the fee waiver. This link will answer such questions as who is eligible, what to submit, etc. Candidates can satisfy the subject matter requirement by obtaining a bachelor's degree or higher from a regionally accredited institution. For multiple subject, a degree in liberal studies, liberal arts, elementary education, and interdisciplinary studies must meet subject matter competence. For single subject, the degree must align with the subject they intend to seek. A degree that aligns with subsumed degree would not meet subject matter competence. For example, a degree in history would not meet subject matter competence for social science, even though history is a subsumed area of social science. In another example, a degree in kinesiology does not meet subject matter for PE unless the degree major is physical education/kinesiology. The CTC would accept the degree because physical education is part of the major. For special education, if you meet the subject matter competency for a multiple subject or a single subject, then you meet the subject matter competency for special education. The Commission on Teacher Credentialing created a chart called Appropriate Degrees to Satisfy Subject Matter Competence. You may access the chart through the Credential Information Guide, or SIG. And this is to view a list of degrees that satisfy SMC for each area. For single subject degrees, EdCode outlines the subjects for which the CTC issues these credentials in California. The subjects covered are agriculture, art, business, dance, English, world language with an authorization to teach languages such as Spanish, Russian, German, or any other language deemed appropriate by the Commission. Health science, home economics, industrial and technology education, mathematics, music, physical education, any of the 5 science areas, social science, and theater. Successful completion of coursework. Candidates may meet the subject matter requirement through coursework at regionally accredited institutions of higher education. Course grade must be C- or better. This pathway allows candidates to tailor their education to their background and needs, potentially by passing standardized tests like the CSAT. This option is beneficial to those candidates who have a strong academic background in their subject area. Each CTC credential approved program has the authority to verify courses that cover the content areas identified in the CTC's subject matter requirements of the credential they seek. CSU Long Beach offers the service of verifying SMC via coursework to the public, but for a fee. Please note that each program reserves the right to accept or deny other program evaluations. Completion of a subject matter program. Candidates can fulfill the subject matter requirement by completing a subject matter program approved by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, or the CTC. The programs are aligned with state educational and credentialing standards and requirements, making them a reliable pathway to demonstrating subject matter competence. This method provides a comprehensive way for candidates to prove their readiness to teach specific subjects in California's public schools. This is not as common, but remains an option. The combination of methods option for meeting the subject matter requirements allows candidates to use a mix of different approaches to demonstrate their proficiency in a particular subject area. This approach provides flexibility and can be particularly useful if you're transitioning from another career or have a diverse educational background. It allows the educator to tailor their path to subject matter proficiency based on their unique circumstances and previous academic or professional experiences. One thing to point out is that it is essential that the combination of methods the candidate chooses covers all the domains of the subject matter requirements as outlined by the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. A CTC credentialing program would help an educator with choosing the correct path to meet subject matter competency. One combination method is coursework plus exams, a combination of college coursework with passing scores on relevant subject matter exams. For example, if you've completed most of the required coursework for mathematics but are missing a course in statistics, you could take and pass the relevant CSET subtest in statistics to fulfill that part of the requirement. Another combination is degree plus additional courses. If you have a degree in a subject that mostly aligns with the credential subject, but not entirely, the educator can take additional courses to cover the missing domains. The third example is an approved program plus exams. Participation in an approved subject matter program might cover most requirements, but if there are gaps, specific subtests of the CSET can be used to cover those areas. The credentialing program has final authority to determine how an individual meets subject matter requirements within the legal parameters. Let's do a review of the requirements for courses. Courses must have been taken at a regionally accredited institution. Courses must have a grade of C- or better, and the program must be commission approved. We will now discuss evaluating official transcripts for the CTC. Regional accreditation. The Commission can only accept coursework and degrees completed at regionally accredited institutions. To view a list of the regional accrediting bodies, please visit ctc.ca.gov. Official transcripts are a requirement for most documents issued by the Commission. In order for transcripts to be considered official, they must be in one of the following formats. They must be printed on security paper directly displaying an official raised seal from the college or university. If the college or university uses a transcript clearinghouse agency for printed transcript copies, these must include a cover letter identifying the degree granting institution and show that the physical transcript copy was mailed directly to the educator. Electronic transcripts submitted directly to the Commission from a digital credential service are considered official. One thing to note is that printed transcripts do not need to be kept in a sealed envelope. Open transcripts are accepted, so as long as they follow the guidance. When evaluating transcripts, make sure the transcripts contain the conferred or degreed date. The courses must be bachelor degree transferable, except if using the courses for a child development permit. In this case, courses can be AA applicable. If the courses are being used to meet basic skills, these courses can be AA applicable and have a grade of B- or higher. For any other course, a grade of C- or higher is acceptable. Please note that a credit or pass is acceptable for any course. Here is a sample of a transcript key. It is important to analyze the following. Always look at the transcript key page for course numbers. You must check if units are semester or quarter. The key will show courses that are not degree applicable. In this example, these are courses under 100 in the course numbering system. It will also explain the grades symbols. And lastly, make note of any incomplete, withdrawals, or failed courses. Foreign transcripts. Individuals who have completed college or university coursework at an institution in a country other than the United States must obtain a complete evaluation for foreign transcripts, degrees, and other relevant documents prior to applying to the Commission for a California credential, permit, or certificate. Foreign transcripts must be evaluated by one of the approved organizations listed on leaflet CL-635 in order to be accepted by the Commission. Foreign transcripts to meet basic skills. Foreign transcripts usually don't meet basic skills requirement. A course-by-course evaluation is not required for a substitute teaching permit. For these permits, a one-page evaluation confirming the candidate has earned a BA or higher degree from a commission-approved agency is all that is required. A course-by-course evaluation is required if the educator is seeking a credential. This concludes the section of BSR, SMC, and transcripts. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Maria. Great job. We're going to take a 5-minute break and transition over to Maria, who is going to be presenting on supplementary documentation. So please stay with us. Thank you. Just a reminder, we will not be able to answer any raised hand questions at this time. Again, everything's being recorded. The chat has the links to the presentations, and I will be sending out the presentations to everyone who is registered after this too. So please be, they will all be available. Please bear with us as we're working through the first time doing a Zoom again. So thank you. Maria, you are up next from Nevada County, presenting on supporting documentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Maria Filmer, and I'm with Nevada County Superintendent of Schools. I will be presenting on supporting documentation this morning. Sorry, I don't have my camera on. I was at the ER last night, early this morning, diagnosed with strep. So I'm excited to be here to present, but I definitely am not physically presentable. So bear with me. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Credential Information Guide. It's also known as SIG. This is an amazing resource. It's an online resource for employers only. So it's a little different than the CTC public site. It has a lot more information to dig into. The login and password is the same for everybody. So the login is SIG 2011 and the password is CTC Guide. I highly encourage everybody to save this as a favorite. It's definitely my go-to. So you'll see from the screenshots that there's featured topics such as CalSAS information. There's a credential analyst guides. There's amazing resources, lots of tools. So there's a lot of information here that you're not going to be able to find on the public CTC website. And if you ever have any comments, suggestions, or difficulty logging in, there is an email, sig2@ctc.ca.gov. Okay, electronic signatures. There are lots of companies now with approved digital signature solutions, such as Adobe, DocuSign, Dropbox, PandaDoc, and Sign Now. Here is an example of the Adobe electronic signature. You'll notice that John Smith, there is actually like a date and time stamp that shows it was digitally signed. And in the background, there's a little bit of this Adobe picture there. So that kind of shows CTC that's actually an approved digital signature. Here are some more examples. On the left-hand side, we have the Sign Now. And again, it has that e-signature ID, which is date and time stamped. And then the other one is a DocuSign electronic signature. Again, it has this certificate of completion. So it's just a way of, again, verifying that they are true electronic signatures. Here's an example of one that is not approved as a quote unquote electronic signature. It's a drag and drop digital signature from Adobe. So this is not appropriate. If you send in an application like this, then CTC will reject it. So make sure you have those digital signatures. Now, there are, of course, always caveats. So for the 41-4, that's the CTC application, you cannot have an electronic signature if the applicant answered yes to any of the professional fitness questions. That must be a wet signature. So please make note of that. But letters in general, signers can use the correct electronic signature as previously discussed. And there is this Credential Information Alert 23-01 that has a lot more information as well as examples. Okay, moving on to transcripts. Okay, CTC can accept transcripts. First off, they could be official. When I say official paper, I mean like the ones that are printed on security paper. They need not remain sealed in original envelope. In fact, employers are always encouraged to open those just to make sure that all the information is on there, that the degree is actually on there with the date. Verified true copies. So basically what that means is like, as an employer, as a county office, I can receive transcripts and I can receive the official transcript, but then I can make a copy and then I can stamp it as verified true copy. So I'm telling CTC as an employer that I have verified a true official transcript, and this is a verified true copy of that. Electronic transcripts, that would be like parchment or directly from an institution. CTC has a new credential information alert that is on here. It's 24-02. So CTC now accepts official electronic transcripts submitted directly by applicants. Now, this is something new. So applicants can now be the requester and intended recipient of e-transcripts, where they couldn't before. So again, like as the employer, I would get electronic transcripts and I would be the intended recipient, but now the actual applicant can. Now, please note, not all LEAs will accept applicant being the intended recipient. So you always have to check with your monitoring authority. So in our office, I would not accept e-transcripts from the applicant. I want to get them directly from that institution. So check with that, your monitoring authority for that. Verified true copies versus originals. Most applications require specific documents that must be submitted in order to verify that the educator qualifies for the document requested. When submitted directly by an educator, certain materials may be photocopies, while others must be originals. Certain documents that are typically required to be original may be submitted as verified true copies by employers or colleges. Employers or program sponsors submitting verified true copies must complete the file box on page 1 of the application to alert commission staff that the application was not submitted by the educator. When Jason gave his 41-4 presentation, he did have an image of that file box on the 41-4. So the table here, it's been provided for guidance as to which materials are acceptable as photocopies and which must be original based on the type of supporting documentation and who submits the application. So this is a great chart that you can reference to know what can be photocopied and what can be original. Okay, the 41-NC stands for name change. This is the request to change name, or also it could be for a personal profile. Required when an applicant needs to change their legal name, date of birth, or social security number. CTC does recommend doing the name change first before submitting an application. Otherwise, it can get really messy and it can maybe delay the process even further. Section A here is, we have a screenshot. This always has to be filled out no matter what is changing. So this is just required information. So you want to ensure that there is a valid government issued ID. It cannot be expired and names must always match. So again, take note to that. Be careful with these because if it doesn't match, if it is expired, then it's just going to be a delay. Social security cards must be signed in order to be valid. I know as an employer, we get a lot of social security cards that aren't signed. So CTC will not accept them unless they are signed, but it would just be a copy. It would not be the original social security card. So we have here request to change name or personal profile. So section B would be completed for social security number or the individual tax ID number change or correction. So it would be fill out section A and then B. Section C is just if you needed a date of birth correction. And what's nice about these is they have the checklist within. So for example, section C says complete 41-NC, section A and C, sign and date, and then also submit a copy of valid government issued ID. So if it's a name change, which I think is probably the most common one, you must check off the sections that apply to the applicant. So a name change could be due to marriage, superior court, a dissolution of marriage, citizenship, or it just could be a correction. So you would fill out section D, the former full legal name, as well as a request requested name change. And here's a screenshot of all the different sections and what is needed. Moving on to out-of-state Route 2. So again, this presentation is strictly about supporting documentation and what is needed. So when verifying 2 or more years of successful teaching experience, you need that it needs to be on original letterhead, and it must indicate full-time. Full-time definition is a minimum of 4 hours per day for at least 75% of the school year. Satisfactory performance evaluations could be original or they could be photocopies, and they need to be for at least 2 years. It does need to state satisfactory or better, and it must be from the period of full-time service, that 2 or more years of successful teaching experience. Those dates must match. Now, in lieu of evaluation, a supplemental letter may be provided. So on the left here is a template of a supplemental evaluation letter and what that would encompass and include. So it needs to include very specific things such as the use of teaching strategies that motivate all students to engage in the learning process, ability to establish and maintain high standards for student behavior, so on and so forth. So this is a great template to have on hand so you know exactly what CTC is looking for. So there's a lot less room for error when you use a template like this. And then on the other side, we have the full-time teaching experience. Again, it's great to have these templates because if you are relying on a principal or a superintendent to fill this out, they may not cover everything that is required by CTC. Okay, moving on to out-of-country requirements. They have 5 years to complete renewal requirements. So they'll get that preliminary for 5 years, and then they must move on to that clear credential. They must have satisfied basic skills requirement within 1 year of obtaining credential. So that is important for an employer to monitor and make sure that they meet that BSR within 1 year. So they can get a preliminary credential without meeting BSR for that first year. So for the preliminary credential, the supporting documentation that is required is a photocopy of the out-of-country credential, application packet, of course, a bachelor's degree, and that bachelor's degree must be verified on foreign transcript evaluation from an approved agency, which Maria in the last presentation covered that. And then completion of teacher preparation program with student teaching. And for the clear credential, the supporting documentation, it would include induction program, basic skills requirement, CPR, other requirements specified to the type of credential, subject matter competency, and U.S. Constitution course. So here is an example of out-of-country renewal codes. So when they have a preliminary credential, there'll be maybe one or all of these renewal codes, such as like CPR, and it tells you that the holder must verify completion of the CPR, which included infant, child, and adult CPR skills. So that's very important that it includes all 3 of those. And such as the holder must complete U.S. Constitution requirement. So it's always good to make note of this to the educator of those preliminary requirements, which again, they'll have 5 years to meet except for the basic skills. It specifically says within 1 year of the issuance date. Here is an example of CPR verification and the type of supporting documentation that is needed. You will see here that it includes adult, child, and infant. It's very important. If it's just adult, then CTC would not accept this. Okay, so for basic skills requirement, what to submit? There are a lot of ways now to meet basic skills requirement. So on the left-hand side, there are all the ways that you can meet basic skills. So I'm not going to go through them individually, but this is a nice chart to reference. There's also, I included the basic skills requirement leaflet CL 667 that is very detailed, has a lot of information. And then I just wanted to note that the ELM, EPT, EAP, those are CSU specific. The AP, there is a coded correspondence 15-03 for more information about the advanced placement and what's accepted. And then coursework, individuals and LEAs without a commission-approved program may use Form CL-130. So here in this chart, it talks about coursework, and it references the 41-BSR, and that's signed by an authorized submitter. So like, for instance, our county office, we are not, we don't have any programs, so I always do my coursework evaluation on the CL-130. Which again, in Maria's presentation, she had a image of what that form looks like. So for the US Constitution requirements, this is an example of the course description. So sometimes this is helpful to provide as backup for the CTC. So this is the course that met the Constitution requirements. So subject matter, appropriate degrees to meet subject matter competence, which is a requirement for that out of country. So there's a website that has appropriate degrees to satisfy subject matter competence. Again, you want to go to that credential information guide, also known as SIG, and open tools, and then you would select the appropriate degree that satisfies a subject matter competence. Like I said, it can be met in several ways, including passing an examination scores, completion of a commission-approved subject matter program, applicable coursework, a degree major in one of the statutory subjects, or it can also be a combination of coursework and examination options. So this table here is the degree major in the statutory subjects. So for instance, the statutory subject would be science and bioscience. If somebody wants that credential, then the applicable degree major is biology, biochemistry, biological engineering, and biological science. So if an educator has one of these degree majors, then they've met their subject matter in science and biological science by that major. So they don't have to do an approved subject matter program. They don't have to take exams. And then over to the right are unacceptable degree majors that would not meet that requirement. And this chart goes on and on and on. So this is just a screenshot of bioscience. And if you ever have any questions related to degrees that are not listed, then you would email credentials@ctc.ca.gov. Continuing with subject matter, so for a subject matter letter, this is a link to the approved institutions and programs. And then there's also a CSET link, which would be the exam portion. And then again, coursework, it could be met by coursework, or it could be met by a combination of coursework or CSET. So sometimes an educator will take the 3 sections of CSET, they may pass 2 of them and failed 1, and then they could take the coursework for that remaining section of the CSET that would satisfy that subject matter. And these are other renewal requirements. So some of the other renewal requirements may be health education. So this basically is indicating where an educator could take these courses. So for developing English language skills, specifically UCLA Extension has a course called Education X315 that is online. So that's how they can meet that requirement. We have Technology Level 1. There's some CPR classes from the American Heart Association. So again, this is just a great resource on how to meet those other renewal requirements. Okay, we're gonna move on to letters, because a lot of times letters are required as supporting documentation. So give you a peek into what those letters look like and some templates that you can use. So for the preliminary administrative services credential, 5 years is required. And there is a CL-574C. Again, it's always great to reference those leaflets for all the information to break down exactly what is needed. So you'll note here that this is the template that said that the educator was employed as a teacher and or service provider, because they could have been a service provider. And then it notes the LEA and then the following grade levels and in the following capacity. So again, was it self-contained, departmentalized? If so, subject area. Was it a special education teacher? And what was that disability area, or was it a service provider or other? And then again, it must be full-time, which is at least 4 hours per day or more for 75% more of the school year as verified below. So there's a great template to use for admin services experience letter. This is the intent for emergency CLAD. So when an educator gets an emergency CLAD, they have to provide written intent to complete the renewal requirements as noted in CL-5330, the leaflet for the CLAD and the bilingual authorization. So it just says, I intend to enroll or have enrolled in a commission-approved CTEL program, or will take the CTEL exam within the valid period of the emergency permit issued by the CTC. And then it indicates, the college or university of where they're going to take those courses or information about the CTEL exam when they're signed up for that. And then the applicant will sign and date that. Now, the emergency CLAD can be renewed, but they do have to show progress towards getting that emergency CLAD. And more details of the renewals are in that CL-5330. Extension by appeal. So credentials can be extended, but there has to be good reason and there has to be supporting documentation for that. So the AL-3 leaflet has all the information about different types of extensions, a 3-year, a 2-year. But as far as what the supporting documentation is, again, this is a great template, because you go to the leaflet and you find out if it's a 3-year extension, what is required. And then this is kind of that checklist. Like I have attached the following. Was it an original letter from the college or university that was required, explaining requirements that need to be met, any exam scores or registration, CPR completion. If it was due for like a medical reason, then you would need an original letter from a doctor describing the nature and duration of illness. So again, this is a great checklist, but you always want to refer to the leaflet as well to make sure that your checklist is in balance with the type of extension the educator is applying for. Okay, so sometimes we have to submit course letters because sometimes it is not clear what credit was given or what the content to a course was. So here are a couple of samples of what can be submitted. So on the left-hand side there would be the student's name, it would be the course code and the name of the course, and include those transcripts. And then it would indicate that the course is comparable to a course in the following area. So like what department was that? And then it would be signed by the dean of department. So it must have original ink signatures, because again, sometimes courses aren't as clear and you don't know what they got credit for. And then on the right-hand side, we have an example of another letter. So again, student's name, course code, name of course, and then the course covers the following content. So it's just kind of the dean of the department would indicate the course, what it covered. And then it would be helpful to also attach like a course description or a syllabus. Okay, so pedagogy. It's methodology course addressing the teaching of a specific subject area. So it's when adding a content area to a general education or teaching credential, a pedagogy course is required. So for instance, if a educator has a single subject math credential and they want to add science, then they would have to take that science pedagogy course. So there's a link to the pedagogy course information, which is very helpful, and it lists like what universities have courses offered, and it is by subject area. So it's a great reference. And then there's that CL 6218. That is the leaflet that talks about when adding a content area, what is required. Okay, that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you
Thank-
all enjoyed this.
Thank you, Maria, sick
Yeah.
and all. We appreciate you no matter doing this, no matter what. So, thanks again. And so up next is going to be Kristen from Sacramento County Office of Ed. So give us 5 minutes to transition over to Kristen and we'll get started. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, this is our last presentation before Q&A. Up next, we have Kristen Green from Sacramento County Office of Ed presenting on GELAP, SELAP, emergency CLADs, and emergency bilingual authorizations. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Oh, should unmute myself. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Kristen Green. I'm a personnel analyst at Sacramento County Office of Education. My presentation today is on GELAPs, SELAPs, emergency CLADs, and emergency bilingual authorizations. Let's make sure my computer is behaving for me. Try and get this to move forward. There we go. So just a brief overview. I have a couple of general information items that are going to apply to all of the documents that I'm talking about today. And then here's a list in order of what I will be covering. So just in general, the hiring hierarchy, it outlines hiring placement priorities for LEAs. So when you are hiring staff and you need documents, this is the order that you want to preferably go in when you are looking for suitable candidates. CTC, just keep in mind, will not grant a document if they find that a candidate qualifies for a higher level document with the same authorization. So for example, if you turn in a waiver application and they see that the person qualifies for a short-term staff permit, they are not going to grant that waiver. Today, we will be looking at emergency permits for folks who already hold a credential and are seeking an additional authorization. Forward. It's going a little slow for me. Oh, here we go. Also keep in mind that for all of these documents today, your local education agency does need to have a declaration of need on file. So that is required for all emergency permits. It is a projection of needs for the school year. So if you submit that and then you end up exceeding the number of emergency permits for your agency by 10%, you do need to send a revision into the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And it does require board approval, so you would need to resubmit that for board approval. Charter schools with multiple sites, just keep in mind, can submit one declaration of need for all sites, but the board has to list all of the sites by name in that approval. Now, online recommendations. Also keep in mind that at the April 24th office hours, CTC did announce that LEA submitters should submit all applications for emergency permits online. That is their preference. If staff needs access, the LEA should submit a CL 897 to request that their submitters be granted access for all emergency permits. This will soon become the only option for submission for these types of documents. So you want to keep that in mind. This does, and that does not apply to the WV1, the variable term waiver application. But starting May 17th, you should be sending all paper applications to their new address, which is at 651 Bannon Street, Suite 600 in Sacramento 95811, and you can find that on their website. Okay, so the first document that we're going to be looking at is the GELAP. And I did note the information leaflet there is the CL 828. So you can find pretty much all of this information on that form if you need to. Just keep in mind that for the GELAP, you must hold a general education teaching credential based on bachelor's degree and student teaching, which is typically going to be a multiple subject or a single subject. At the preliminary or clear level. This cannot be issued for an intern credential or like a STEP or a PEP. It does require consent. I do recommend that you get that in writing, and you can actually, as an LEA, generate a form to just have the individual sign rather than have them do that themselves. Experienced educator that needs to be assigned to guide them needs to have 3 years of experience in the subject area that you are requesting. You can extend it once by appeal if requirements are not met. And the idea is that the educator should be working towards getting the permanent authorization while holding the permit. So moving forward. My arrow keys are not cooperating with me. All right, so the GELAP, these are all of the authorizations that are available. On the right-hand side, those are single subject authorizations you can get. You can request as many subjects as you want, but you do have to complete the renewal requirements for each subject that you want to renew. So if you ask for an English and a music authorization and they end up only completing the renewal requirements for English, they only qualify to renew on the English. CTC will not issue a GELAP in a subsumed subject. So for example, if you wanted a foundational math authorization and they already hold a math authorization, there's not necessary. So for the GELAP application, the employer must submit this application on behalf of the educator. So that means you're going to be completing that if you're doing it online, you'll notice that I have a little screenshot here. This is actually what the online recommendation dashboard, a portion of what that looks like. And so that's the section that the submitter would be filling out to select the GELAP application. If it was a paper application, you would be having to complete that upper right-hand corner on the first page. You do have to have a valid base credential, so make sure that your educator has renewed that credential, and that is valid for up to 1 year from the issuance date that you're going to be requesting on that base document. And because it will expire with that expiration date, and that's what's referred to as a dependent document. If you need to renew that GELAP, for coursework, the coursework requirement, you do need 6 semester units, C or better of coursework to renew, or they have to be actively trying to take and pass the CSET, and they need to provide results of those CSETs. Pass or credit is okay for the coursework requirement. They do have to pass 2 sections of the CSET if they're taking the exam option. For online recommendations, also keep in mind, although it is a $100 fee, there is a $2.50 charge for online fee payments. Verified true copies of transcripts are okay when they are submitted by the employer. So there is, if you're not familiar with doing online recommendations, there is a portion where the employer individual who is processing that recommendation attaches documents, and so you would be uploading digital copies to that online. Required documents must be attached when recommending online as well. So moving on to the special education limited assignment permit. The leaflet for that one is the CL-889. And so you're seeing here, again, these are all of the requirements for the document. You must hold a special education teaching credential based on a bachelor's degree and a professional preparation program, including student teaching, or a clear or professional clear, or even a life speech language pathology or clinical rehabilitative, I cannot speak today, rehabilitative services credential with a special class authorization. So either of those must have the special class authorization, which allows them to teach. So here are the authorizations that are available for the SELAP. Keep in mind that the mild, moderate support needs, the holders of those credentials do not need to submit coursework if they are requesting an extensive support needs, and vice versa. And that is because there is a significant overlap in the content areas for those documents. So the coursework requirement is waived in that case. That also applies for the MMSN or ESN holders who are requesting the early childhood special education. They do have to have 3 semester units or 4 quarter units of coursework from a regionally accredited college or university in each special education specialty area they are requesting. Special education coursework that includes more than one specialty area is acceptable for the initial issuance of the SELAP, so long as one of the specialty areas included in the content is in the area requested on the permit. Or they need to have, and this is only available for the SELAP and not for general education, they can have 1 year of successful full-time classroom experience or equivalent and part-time experience serving in an instructional capacity with special education students in each of the areas requested. And they have to have had a favorable evaluation or recommendation by the employing agency. They do need to have verification of employment on the letterhead from the employer. Full-time experience is defined as a minimum of 4 hours per day, 5 days a week, or 75% of a school year, or a maximum of 2 hours per day for 75% of each school year for 2 years. All right. There we go. So when you're filling out the application, make sure that the base credential, again, is valid or renewed, and make sure that the renewal is issued before you submit that recommendation also, because if the commission begins processing that, your recommendation or the application that you're submitting before the base document is renewed, it will generate a 60-day notice. Dependent documents, again, same deal. This is a dependent document. There we go. When you go to renew this document, there is a supplementary form that actually needs to be completed as well, and that's the CL 469 SELAP, which I have an image of here. And you'll notice, again, application fee, all of that. Now moving on to the emergency ECLAD. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to read it out, but that is the leaflet number for that document, and it actually also serves as the leaflet number for the emergency bilingual authorization, which I will cover next. It is used to add an English learner authorization. So for someone who, a lot of times folks coming out of state might not have an English learner authorization, you would want to apply for this for them in most cases. So you'll see the prerequisite credentials are there. You have to possess a valid California teaching credential, or again, a speech pathology credential or clinical rehab credential that has a special class authorization, or, and I don't think I've seen one of these before, actually, a visiting faculty permit or a child development permit that authorizes instruction to pupils. So at the level where that includes instruction. Documents that do not qualify are going to be any emergency permits, short-term staff permits, provisional intern permits, or district intern credentials, university intern credentials. It does require written intent to complete the renewal requirements. So again, you'll want to have that person either write out that they intend to complete the renewal requirements, or you can generate your own form and just have them sign it. They'll need a transcript showing bachelor's degree and the copy of their basic skills requirement, however they've met that. And those should be attached when, especially when the base credential does not require it. For example, a CTE credential. I'm not going to cover it here today, but there is, for CTE credentials specifically, there may be an alternative English learner option under a waiver for the CCSD waiver that you might want to look into instead. CTC may request, if they do not have the bachelor's degree on file. So for example, if the person already holds a credential that required a bachelor's degree, to get that credential, a lot of times they will already have that recorded in their files, and so people might not want to attach that. But if they don't have a record of it and they get a new application, they are going to ask for a copy of those transcripts. Now, the ECLAD, this is the authorization for the ECLAD. I won't read all of that, but all that to say that it authorizes English language development and SEDI. SEDI is limited to the subjects of the base credential. So for example, specially designated content instruction in math is presented in English to English learners. And there is a resource under the assignment resources section of the SIG where you can see the breakdown of what each type of authorization authorizes. For preliminary CTE credentials, it is recommended to apply again for a CCSD waiver instead, as the educator is going to receive an EL authorization when clearing that credential. And this will prevent unnecessary coursework or exams in order to renew this permit. The application, and it actually, as I had mentioned earlier, if you're going to be creating a form for them to sign, here's a good example of one that we use here at Sacramento. Make sure that the base credential, again, is valid or renewed. You need that written intent letter. And then CTEL scores, just keep in mind, if they're taking CTEL, they will remain valid for 10 years from their completion date. So if they're using old scores when they go to renew, which I'll talk about in a little bit, keep in mind when those are going to be expiring. So here with the ECLAD renewal, again, the employer submits this item. In order to renew, they also have to complete a verification form. This is completed with and I have an example I'm going to show you. The employer completes it along with the educator and potentially a program. So they have a couple of options to meet that renewal. It's either going to be 6 units of coursework, or they pass 2 parts of the CTEL, or they can do a combo option, but it has to be verified by the program. And you do have to have an experienced educator with an EL authorization who is supporting this individual. So here's just an example of what that form looks like, that supplementary form that you would be submitting with the renewal. You notice there's several sections to it, and they'll be filled out depending on what option the person is completing. The employer needs to make sure that they complete the employer section. And if completing the coursework or combo option, section C does need to be completed by the CTEL program. And so they'll send that back to you as the employer for submission. And again, coursework must be completed with a C or better. And so now we're moving on to the emergency bilingual authorization. You'll notice, again, that is the same leaflet as the ECLAD. It's just lower down on the same page. This is used to add a bilingual authorization. Again, you must possess a valid California teaching credential or any of the other ones I previously mentioned for the ECLAD. It's the same base credential requirement. And again, the same documents that do not qualify also do not qualify here. And again, you do need the written intent. And then you'll notice under the renewal requirements, those are also very similar to what we just went over. The emergency bilingual authorization authorizes all of the same things that the emergency ECLAD does, except there's one additional authorization, which is content delivered in the identified language. So the language that you are requesting, that is the additional authorization that is granted by the bilingual authorization. And note that there can be an area of confusion with some folks. So just keep in mind that a bilingual authorization is allowing you to teach a subject in the language. It is not authorizing you to teach that language. So for example, if you had a bilingual authorization in, say, Spanish, it does not authorize you to teach Spanish as a subject. It authorizes you to teach the subject that is on your credential while speaking in Spanish. Again, it authorizes ELD and SEDI, just like the emergency ECLAD. The SEDI is limited to the subjects of the base credential. So, you cannot, if your base credential subject authorization is English, you're not going to be teaching math while using SEDI. And again, under the assignment resources section, you can find a breakdown of what each type of authorization will authorize in the classroom. For preliminary CTE credentials, again, you may want to go with a CCSD waiver, but there isn't a bilingual authorization option, so this may be the only route for them if this is what they're going for. The bilingual application, again, make sure that the base credential is renewed, and again, that you have written intent. Now, the language proficiency, that's going to be a new one, so we're going to look a little more into that. You'll notice that I have an image of this CSET here, and so that is one of the options to verify that language, that target language proficiency. There we go. So what you're seeing here is just a brief snippet of the options that are available to verify that target language proficiency that you're going to need. There's more detail on the leaflet, but I'll just go a little bit into that right now. Ignore the typo I just noticed. Option number 1, you will need to pass tests 2 or 3, depending on which language you are targeting for, of the CSET World Languages exam in that language. And it needs to be verified by an official score report. Passing exam scores, again, are valid for 10 years from the test date. And then option number 2, if test 2 or 3 of the CSET World Language Exam is not available in that target language, you can pass an assessment performed by an approved organization covering the integrated communication skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the target language. Option number 3 is that you pass an assessment covering the integrated communication skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing administered by a California college or university as a part of its commission-approved bilingual authorization program in the target language. And just a side note on that, if you need to find a program that is authorized for that, the commission does have a lookup, again, on their webpage and also on the SIG. Option number 4 is to possess a valid non-emergency California single subject or standard secondary teaching credential with a full subject area authorization or major in the target language. So if you have a single subject credential with an authorization to teach world language, Hmong, or Spanish, anything along those lines, if you are asking for an emergency bilingual authorization in that same language, then you have already met that target language proficiency. And then option number 5 If you possess a 3-year or higher degree from a foreign institution in which all instruction was delivered in that target language, the foreign institution must be equivalent in status to a regionally accredited institution of higher education in the United States. So in that case, I would recommend that you go get a foreign transcript evaluation from one of the approved foreign transcript evaluation agencies that the commission lists on the SIG. And then to renew the emergency bilingual authorization, they do need to pass portions of the CTEL as one option. So you must pass test 1, test 2, or test 3 of the CTEL exam. If these tests were not passed prior to issuance of the emergency permit that is being reissued, so when they applied for the credential, whatever that issuance date, if all of these tests were already passed prior to the issuance date on the original emergency bilingual authorization, or if the applicant opts to complete coursework in lieu of taking these tests, then they need 3 semester units of coursework, and that is required for the English Learner Authorization ECLAD certificate or emergency bilingual. I'll say that again. If they opt to complete coursework in lieu of taking these tests, 3 semester units of coursework is required for the English Learner Authorization or ECLAD certificate may be substituted. If they're going for an exam-only option to complete the requirements to get their English Learner Authorization, they do need to pass either test 2 or 3, depending on, again, which language they are going for. 4 or 5 of the CSET World Language Exam if these exams were not passed prior to the issuance of the permit. If all exams have been passed, or if the individual opts to complete coursework in lieu of taking these exams, 3 semester units of coursework, again, from a commission-approved CTEL program may be substituted based on verification from the program sponsor. So if a program sponsor is involved at any point, if they're going through a program to do coursework, you have to get that verification. The option B, coursework only. If they're going for just doing coursework, they need to be in contact with that program, and the program is going to verify everything for you. And they will complete the appropriate section of the form CL 469 CLAD-BL, which is that supplementary form that you'd be submitting. And then the combo option, again, that needs to be verified through the program, the CTEL program that they're taking the coursework portion through. Again, they need to complete that supplementary form. And that's what you need to renew that. And those are all of the documents that I have covered today.
Thank you, Kristen, very much. We are going to take a 5-minute break, and back at 11 will be Kristen, Stephanie from San Joaquin County Office of Ed, and Ashley from Tehama answering questions. And Rosa will be asking the questions, and then they will be answering. So join us back at 11 for Q&A. As of right now, there are 71 questions. So we will try to get through as many as possible. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on the Q&A. Is Rosa, Ashley, Stephanie, and Kristen all available? I want to make sure you guys are all on before we get started. And Kristen, there you are. Perfect. Okay, so what's going to happen from here is Rosa's going to be reading the questions from the Q&A, and then one of the three ladies will answer. We'll try with the raising the hand. If that doesn't work and it's just you guys answer, fine. If you don't know a question, they answer totally fine. We are not the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Again, they have purview. We are giving our best answers, and always check with your monitoring authority. So we will do our best. So go ahead and take it away, Rosa.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and get started. There's 72 questions on the Q&A right now, so we'll try to get to all of them. So the first one is CTC processing time, 50 business days from receipt. That's the question.
So go ahead, Ashley.
So what we've been seeing is when we mail in a paper application to the CTC, once they input that application into their system and it starts pending evaluation, it takes approximately 50 business days or so to process. Same with PIPs, STIPs, online submissions. The only application I would say that's different would be like a certificate of clearance or a substitute teacher permit. Those are usually 7 to 10 business days, usually less than that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ashley.
Can we download the form as a PDF? I'm not sure they were asking a specific form that was during the presentation or the presentation
Go ahead,
itself.
Steph.
You can no longer download the 41.4. They would prefer it on the web-based version. If you click on the link, and then the applicant will fill it all out, and then after that, it can be downloaded from CTC, and all of their information's on there. I believe the issue was they were having a lot of issues with it not being filled out correctly, especially like the back date on page 5. A lot of people were putting like their date of birth instead of the date they were actually filling out the application, or the county wasn't spelled correctly or anything like that. A lot of it was just to fix the issues of no whiteouts, no crossouts, or anything like that.
Thank you. What if our LEA is not listed charter school in the drop downs?
Ashley? You're muted, Ashley.
That would be helpful. If we're still referencing the 41.4, there is a checkbox underneath that drop down that I think states something like, you know, you don't see your district in the drop down box, and then you can check that box and then type in your district or school name in there.
Thank you. For the back date for 3 months, is that 3 calendar months or business days? Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
It's 90 days, including holidays, weekends, all of that, just 90 days straight.
Yeah, the next one's a long one. Transcripts have been rejected by CTC stating that they are unofficial even though they are stamped. True copy of original and signed by the district and mailed in. Has anyone else been getting transcript rejected from this recent? Not sure why this has been happening to our district and has been doing in this way for years without an issue.
I would say contact CTC and see what the issue is, because you should be able to stamp transcripts as official.
Okay, the next one, CIA 2303 refers to using the 41.4 web-based form. Is the 41 form shown in the slides still acceptable, or is this best to use the web-based 41.4?
Stephanie.
You can still use the old downloaded form, but just know there are new credentials that are being updated or anything like that, and eventually that form will not be valid. You can start using the web-based 41.4.
Thank you. If an applicant answer yes to the fitness question and they need to complete the additional explanation form, do they mail the fitness explanation form to the DPP separately and then the 41-4 application to the CTC? Or do they include both forms and send it to CTC?
Ashley.
What I do is I send everything together, because when there is a yes, when they answer yes to one of those questions on the 41-4, it automatically will get sent over to the DPP. So I just include that explanation form with the entire application packet, and send that I send it to the application's address, but it will end up going to DPP.
The next one is, what is code correspondence and credential informational alert? How do we stay up to date on this?
Stephanie.
The code of correspondence and the credential information alert are basically any information that CTC has just updated, new information on like the new PK3 or anything like that. I will drop in the chat how you can sign up for those newsletters.
Yeah. Our district attended a CTC office hours and they said starting May 1st, we have to submit applications online. Do we still have to do the 41-4 app on paper?
Stephanie.
I would recommend that you contact your county office of education and how they would like it done. For us personally, it would make sense for them to just kind of fill out that 41-4 information, just so that we know if there is a yes answer or any additional information is required for it. And it also helps us to know which district is requesting that application. So if we have any questions, we know who to refer back to.
Thank you. Next question, please confirm the application does not need to mark yes on 41-4 when it's already been cleared by DPP.
Ashley.
So that's been a big conversation with all of us lately on the CNS listserv. And what I think we came to is that if you're mailing in a paper application and there is background, whether it's new or it's been cleared by the DPP previously, you still need to mark that yes answer. Online submissions, I believe DPP mentioned at the last conference that if it's online, and it's been cleared previously, it's not anything new, that they can answer no to that question. I think the questions are listed a little differently on paper application, or maybe it was the waiver. I think we were talking about the waiver paper application, but until we have further clarification from DPP, it's probably most safe to answer yes, unfortunately, but I think we just need to get further clarification from the DPP on that before we make any decisions, because we also have been talking about the TCCs and whether we can issue those or not based on the DPP changing the effective date once they complete their review.
Thank you. Do we need to hold on to the completed 41 LS form once fingerprints are completed by the educator? We had conflicting direction as to whether we need to store a copy or if the educator should hold on to it.
So we keep those in our fingerprinting office, and we send it as part of the educator packet. And we keep all of the documentation that we send to the commission in our files and Laserfiche, but technically once the application's granted, I don't see the reason why you would need it still.
Thank you. For a new ECLAD application for an educator with a multiple subject credential, what should we select in, it's the answer is not complete. The question is not completing. It just says the. So we can skip. I don't know if you want to skip that one.
Go ahead and skip.
Yeah, okay. What is the difference between classified and certificated fingerprints? And what should the process be when someone is moving from bringing a classified person to a certificated instructor?
I would check with your legal if you have any questions on that.
Thank you. Fingerprinting every 18 months. I'm new to a position and did not know this.
You don't have to fingerprint 18 months. That's only if they do not have a valid document with CTC and 18 months have passed. So their fingerprints are no longer valid with CTC. They'll go ahead and toss them, and then that person has to re-fingerprint again.
Thank you. Can a SPED credential holder be placed on a STIP to teach a general ed class if they take the CSET in the subject they are seeking? Can an educator be placed in a lower document permit if they hold a credential?
So they're saying they have a special ed and they want to go to gen ed? Or was it vice versa?
Special ed going to general ed.
Yeah, so if they've never held a STIP before, they can do a STIP multiple subject if they're in a gen ed assignment from self-contained.
Does the 18-month fingerprint deadline hold true if you have a certificated or clearance which lasts 5 months? I think they answered that before.
Yeah, the answer is it's fine as long as the certificate of clearance is valid.
Can you go over when one application can be used versus submitting multiple applications? For example, if I'm applying for 2 single subject credentials, is there 2 applications and I'm thinking required?
No, for a single subject, you can put both authorizations on the one application for one fee.
Thank you. For the child development permit, does our local county office determine the type of CDC permit an educator is placed on? How does the LEA determine the 105 hours?
Stephanie.
You would need to contact your county office of education if they do child development permits. We do them here, so we do the evaluation, so we assist with that. And then our ECE department also has professional growth advisors on hand, and that's the one that you can use to determine 105 hours. It has to be a professional growth advisor. In addition to that, you can also go to the child development handbook in the SIG, and it has all of that information on there as well.
Thank you. The question is, fingerprints are done electronically now. How was the transition from fingerprint cards to the online system? How would we verify if teachers who were fingerprint using the card method are currently on district's online reporting system or database?
So the cards right now are just for out of state. So no one inside California should be using fingerprint cards. But again, you'll check the commission's database whether or not someone has fingerprint clearance or not on their profile.
No. If I have an applicant for a teacher position and she was original from a foreign country, but has lived here for the past 20 years, with some of her transcripts from that country, but her teaching credentials are from California, do I have to send her for the rolling on the FD 258 cards?
She lives in California, so should be doing live scan. Or if she's out of country, you know, I'm not sure about your whole visa process, but if someone's in California, they should be doing live scan.
Thank you. For the new ECLAD application, what in the 41.4, what should the application type requested? The education has multiple subject preliminary credential, or the educator has a multiple subject preliminary credential.
Stephanie.
They can add, they're adding the subject authorization to existing document.
Thank you. Do we have any information on legislature considering moving away from the BSR requirement? Getting a college degree from an accredited institution seems to demonstrate they've gotten their basic skills.
So that's in the works. Hopefully will be coming soon.
If a multiple subject applicant has completed all other criteria but not have been able to pass the CSET, and does not meet SMC through major, what options remain?
Unfortunately, there are no other options. If the person already had a PIP or a STIP during COVID, when they needed all that, they can't now drop down to a waiver, but if they've exhausted all that, unfortunately, that person's out of options.
In ELA, but communications does qualify for the coursework, correct? I'm not sure if they were referring to something during
I
the,
believe they were referring to the BSR, if communications will satisfy the coursework for BSR. And it all just depends on what is in the course descriptions.
thank you. If an applicant has met basic skills to enter into a program, and they giving a copy of the VSR to submit with other applications, our district gives an employee a copy.
Awesome.
That's just a comment. Do ACT, and AP scores need official score reports? Some people who have older testings are not able to receive these scored reports. How is this being handled?
If they have a copy of it, CTC will accept that as well. But once again, I would recommend contacting your monitoring authority to see how they would like it done.
Thank you. Are there expiration dates for AP, CSET, ACT, and SAT scores? Are there any expiration dates?
No.
Well, the CSET has.
Oh, CSET, yeah, 10 years.
10 years. What will happen to applicants that apply for an emergency 30-day substitute permit based on SB 1397 or on prior to 7/124, but have answered yes to one of the professional fitness questions and the application is not granted by the 7/1 date?
It goes by the file date on the application. So if it's done by an employer and the file date is prior to the 7/1, or if the commission receives it prior to 7/1.
Thank you. When an applicant passes the CSET, does that mean that they can use that score to apply for a subject matter authorization to be added to their credential?
Yes, but they would also need to take a pedagogy course as well, if it's needed. If they're just adding, if they have a biology credential and they're adding chemistry, then that's fine. But if they're adding like going from PE to teach bio, then CSETs would be needed in a pedagogy course.
Do they need to pass the CSET if they already have a credential? Or do they also need a methodology course for every subject?
Again, like Steph said, if it's science, you don't need to take another pedagogy if you're adding another science authorization. But if you're going, say, science to PE, then obviously you have to do CSETs and pedagogy. So, but if it was science to science, it's just CSETs and then you can add.
What's the difference between VSR and subject matter competence?
The BSR is the basic reading, writing, and math, and that's one of the minimum requirements to be a teacher, even for sub-teaching. And then subject matter competence is required for later on so that you can be like intern eligible and your preliminary and things like that. If you have subject matter competence, then you do not qualify for a PIP. You only qualify for a STIP, and from there go on. But also subject matter competence is also required if you want to see if they qualify for a PIP or a STIP and if they are authorized to teach in that area. So they have to have certain units to teach math, science, English.
Thank you. Just to clarify, there are no longer any fee waivers for CSET. This benefit expired last year.
It goes to the end of June for this year.
Is BSR still being waived for subs for next year?
It's being waived currently right now. We just don't have any information for after for next school year. So we'll probably get information on it right after the beginning of the school year.
Thank you. Is the prospective substitute teaching permit available to recommend online for authorized agencies?
No.
Just to be clear, candidates can go out to take new courses to cover the domains, even when using the other option covering the 9 content areas for multiple subjects instead of the full 23 domains for SMC.
I would recommend that they contact a program for this, just so that, because the program will also see if they have all the domains and anything like that.
If someone has a degree in a subject matter, such as business administration for a single subject business credential, what else is required to get their preliminary credential?
A program. So this can get someone who has business, they can get, obviously a STIP or a STIP in business, or if they were going multiple subject or something like that, they would need a coursework evaluation, but a person still has to go through a program, either intern or preliminary prep program to get a credential.
Did you say that a candidate using coursework to meet SMR may take additional coursework after earning their degree in order to meet the domains?
Again, they would have to contact a program just to ensure that they meet all the domains in there.
Can you please repeat what you said about subject matter competency by degree for PE and kinesiology?
I believe what they meant was, if it said PE kinesiology, it could count for subject matter competency, but if it just said kinesiology, then it wouldn't count.
And you'll want to see that subject matter link that was in the presentation. It has all of the areas that count.
Thank you. Foreign transcript and SMR, please clarify. I heard you say that course-by-course evaluation is required if trying to meet SMR by coursework. Can they also meet it by degree match if they're translated and matches one of our acceptable degrees?
Yes, that's correct.
I have an employee who has a criminal background and has disclosed to CTC. They were issued a preliminary credential. Now I need to apply for an emergency ECLAD for them. On the application, we check the yes for our physical fitness question and fill out the section in the physical fitness form. Are we able to write something like CTC has document pertaining to this incident already, or do we need to provide all the information again?
If all of the court, if it's a previous, conviction that was cleared by the DPP and all the court documents and everything were submitted, you don't need to submit all of those again. You would do the physical fitness form, the explanation form, and submit that. However, even though they have already cleared it previously, it will still be sent to DPP for review if there are any yes questions. The applications department will send it over to DPP to be reviewed and make sure that it's all clear and good to go.
Thank you. Just want to confirm that the foreign transcripts do not need course-by-course evaluation for 30 days emergency permit, sub-permits.
That's correct.
If someone who has a multiple subject credential that will like to teach special education, will she need to go to a commission-approved program to obtain a special education credential? I think I heard you say any major that satisfies multiple subjects will satisfy SMC for special education.
Yeah, so they still, if they're going gen ed to special ed, they do still have to go through a program. So they may not need subject matter, but they still have to go through a program.
Can you clarify rule regarding backdating applications to original assignment date?
You can only backdate up to 90 days, but also include by the time your county office of ed receives it, process it, and sends it out to CTC. And then by the time CTC receives it as well. So you always want to give yourself time from by the time you sent it out, everything's being processed, and then CTC receives it as well. That's when the 90-day mark also is included in that.
Will the BSR be required for sub-teaching going forward after July 1st? On the webinar, it sounded like it will be required per the CTC starting after July 1st, but then it sounded like it's up to the district to make the decision. Just wanted to clarify.
It is required.
Is Blue Ink an approved digital signature platform?
No,
Is there a leaflet that says Dropbox sign is acceptable now?
no, but if you go in the SIG where it says supported signatures, you will see all the approved ones that are on there.
Are the electronic signatures able to complete via the educator portal?
No.
No.
Does the file box needs to be filled out when submitting online?
Again, I would recommend contacting your county office of education and how they would like things to be filled out.
Next one we already answered. With the name change taking 8 to 10 weeks right now, what would be the best course of action if we need to submit an application but need a name change prior?
I always tell people to submit the way their current profile reads, and then once granted, do the name change, or you can send them in together. So if you're doing a paper app, you can send in the name change with the paper application.
Thank you. For CPR, does the health course cover that, or do they need a CPR certificate?
I'm not sure on that. That's a program usually requirement. I know it can be from out of country too. I think CPR, you need CPR.
Yeah, you need the CPR certificate for
Yeah.
that.
Can we
Yeah.
submit e-transcripts on behalf of first-time substitute applicants?
You can submit e-transcripts, but again, contact your monitoring authority, because here at San Joaquin County Office of Education, if it was sent directly to the applicant, we would not accept those. We need it to be sent directly to the employer, and then the employer can send it to us.
Can you apply for a renewal on an ECLAD if the educator has only passed one subject of the CTEL but failed the other two?
So if you do not meet all of the renewal requirements on the emergency CLAD, you can apply for an appeal on that, but I believe you only get one.
When do you use the course letters?
If
When
you
you're-
just need backup,
Can you attach the supporting document sample templates?
Oh, those were the examples from my, yeah, I can provide those. I don't have them right now, but I'll.
Are they referring to the supporting?
I think it's the supporting documents. I believe it might be the out of state is what they're asking for.
Yeah, we can definitely gather any templates that we have from all the presentations. So it could be Kristen's, it could be ours, and we'll definitely add those to the Google Drive.
Okay. One of our educators is under an emergency CLAD original apply via application. And we apply for the, do we apply for the renewal online?
Yes.
Oh, you know, I wasn't sure.
It was covered that we can process an out-of-state credential and clear CLAD on one application.
Well, yeah, so if they're doing an out-of-state application and they have the EL from out of state, you can add that in on the same application, yes. If it was done at a different time, then obviously it would be a separate application, but if it's all done together, that is correct.
Can you add an emergency CLAD to the out-of-state preliminary, or does this only apply to a clear authorization, EL authorization?
A lot of times, if you have an out-of-state preliminary credential, the commission is going to issue that without an English learner authorization, and they're going to require they get one as a clearing requirement on that document. And in order to cover the individual to provide service to English learners, they're going to need to have that emergency CLAD. And in that case, The emergency CLAD is issued as a separate document, not embedded on that preliminary credential. So it'll expire in 1 calendar year. And then if they need to renew it, they'll, complete all of the renewal requirements and apply for the renewal. But the end goal is to complete all of the requirements to get that English learner authorization embedded on their preliminary or their preliminary credential. Or if that's the only clearing requirement, then you just submit an application with the verification of the that they meet the requirements to add that English learner authorization and embed it on the credential and request to clear it at the same time.
Thank you. Can you get a GELAP for an educator that's on a preliminary credential?
Yes, and you need to make sure that you have a declaration of need on file.
Okay. For SLPs, if they have their SLP license, can they apply directly for a clear credential, or do they need a 2-year preliminary?
I would need to look at the clear requirements. Does someone know off the top of their head?
I'm looking.
I mean, they can apply directly. They don't have to go through a district, but they have to meet all the renewal requirements, obviously, to clear. So
If they have the speech pathology license, they just need that in the 41-4 and they can apply for a clear.
Can GELAPs and SELAPs be renewed by the LEA online?
Yes.
For a GELAP, do the 6 units have to be taken after initial insurance, or do the previous taken 6 units count towards the renewal?
after,
Mhm.
Can you explain a situation where a SELAP will be needed?
Yeah, sure. So say you have an educator that is serving in a mild moderate support, or they hold a mild moderate support needs credential. They're serving in that assignment, and then they, through however circumstances, they end up needing to serve in a extensive support needs classroom assignment. To get that SELAP, you would get the SELAP in the extensive support needs, and that will cover them in the assignment. Now, the person is you want to ensure that they're agreeing to meet the requirements to actually get the full authorization if you're going to be putting them in that assignment, because they need to be actively taking coursework and units towards getting that additional authorization. So yeah, if they're moving into another assignment that requires a different authorization, that's when they're going to need that.
SELAP authorization. Candidate has a mild modern credential but needs a moderate severe. Can they apply for the ESN, and what are the requirements?
yes.
Yes.
Kristen, do you want to finish with
I
this?
know. Well, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so there's no mild, moderate to mod severe or the new authorizations. You don't need any units. So you would just need, obviously, your declaration of need on file. So
Can a mild moderate credential holder apply for a SELAP in an extensive needs, or in a reverse, can a moderate severe credential holder apply for the SELAP in MMSN?
That's similar to the question we just had.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
When recommending someone for a GELAP SELAP with 2 authorizations, will we need 2 applications and 2 fees?
I can answer that. No, you should not. So if there are 2 authorizations that will fit on the same document, so in the case of the GELAP, any of those single subject authorizations, anything like that, when you submit that application, you're going to ask for both subjects on one application. Same goes with the SELAP. But just don't, obviously you're only going to ask for the authorizations that the person needs, but they need to keep in mind that they need to be working towards meeting the renewal requirements on both authorizations and not just one.
Thank you. Paper apps with professional fitness questions answered with the yes have to be signed with an ink signature. Does this impact online recommendations for emergency permit? Does this mean that we can't submit online recommendations if an answer has been yes, because CTC wants paper apps with the ink signature?
No, you can still do online for online recommends, but if you're doing a paper and they have a yes, then it needs to be a wet signature.
Emergency ECLAD. For initial insurance, does the teacher needs to pass a CSET 3, or do they have and attempted the exams only, or must have they attempted the exams only?
On the initial issuance of the emergency bilingual, the target language proficiency requirement, the CSET 3 or 2, depending on the language, that's just one of the options. And it to meet, and if you're on the leaflet, that's item number 4 on the initial application. CSET is not the only option to meet that target language proficiency for initial issuance.
Out-of-state credentials. How can we apply for preliminary transfer? Can you provide us with the requirements and the link of the application as well?
So there are, I mean, there's multiple links, I guess, depending on the type of credential that's that you're going to be applying for. And then there's also 2 options, whether they have less than 2 years of out-of-state teaching experience, which would be, sorry, I'm reading now. So less than 2 years of out-of-state or more than 2 years of out-of-state. So there's 2 routes that you would go for those. But they would need, you know, a bachelor's degree. They would need to meet basic skills requirement in California. And then they would also have to have the comparable teaching credential, whether it's multiple subject or a single subject. So we can provide those links. It just depends on if it's a multiple subject, single subject education specialist.
So, and I would say a good source on the SIG, they have out-of-state charts on there. So what's a comparable credential? And it's not the end-all list, but that is very helpful, from out-of-state basic skills to out-of-state EL. So there's lots of good charts on there.
And on the roadmap to teaching, if you click on out of state, it actually breaks it all down for you as well, like which route, if they have 1, 2 years of experience, or 4 or 5. It's really good if you could do the roadmap to teaching.
I just learned about the coursework review option that allows someone to meet the multiple subjects CSET by having just one appropriate course in each of 9 content areas. This is what qualifies the recommending institution to determine their degree to be interdisciplinary in nature and meets the requirements for multi-subject CSET. Can you please verify?
Well, the equivalency, if it's not by degree, is all done by a program. So we're not allowed to do coursework evaluation. So I would definitely check with the program on any questions that have to do with this.
There has been a couple staff members that when they went to complete the 41-4 for renewal, they indicated that only the COC came up on their pull-down window and didn't realize until after I contacted them that they did not renew their credential, but they renew their COC. And they go back in and then they're able to pull down the actual credential to renew. Can they request a credit refunded for the first incorrect document renewal?
No, it is non-refundable at all.
So if they're not able to renew online and the document's not there, then you can just do a printout and then do a paper application.
Okay, will this recording be available?
Yes.
Going back to professional fitness, if a teacher states that they had an incident explained, should they continue to disclosure? If the answer, if I say yes, is this correct?
We don't advise people on professional fitness questions because there's such a legality to it.
We always
So-
recommend contacting DPP for this.
Can you hold two steps if they are in different areas, multiple subject and single subject? Or is this once in a lifetime? What about a PIP?
Once in a lifetime, yeah, no, two at the same time. You can have more than one subject area on, a single subject, but or an ed specialist.
Can I hire a certificated program specialist management position and place them on a classified salary if they do not have an admin credential?
Certificated, should be certificated. So I would talk with your monitoring authority on that.
If a teacher with the prelim multiple subject credential that expires 8/1/25, does she still need to complete RICA if it is being retired next year? Yeah, as of right now, the RICA is still required, so they should be attempting it. I have a science teacher on a STEP biology or science, and it's enrolled in the fall for the teaching program. She will not be done with the intern requirements until the spring. Is there any other permits I can use to keep her working?
She hasn't exhausted her PIP, that's an option.
Yeah, if she hasn't met subject matter. Is there a guide around industry recognized certifications in relation to CTE credential? I would recommend you contact a CTE program, and they know more about the certifications and what helps qualify. So yeah, I would definitely recommend a CTE program. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts on that.
I would contact a program as well.
We have a program here at Tehama County Office of Ed, just to throw that out.
And we do here at San Joaquin, we have Teachers College San Joaquin, great program too, so. If I have an ed sped whose credential has expired, went to sub-teacher and that permit has expired, if he has not been 18 months since the ed sped has expired, can they still renew the ed sped credential?
Yes, he could still renew it. And if it's not past 18 months and he doesn't have, then his fingerprints are still valid.
Okay, the next one, since fundamental level science only has CSET 215, does the individual need to pass all CSET 215 in order to renew their GELAP, or can they use their passing results from one of the CSET 215 domains to show progress on obtaining the authorization? On what coursework would they need to complete to renew their fundamental science in GELAP?
New foundational. Well, they would only be able to apply CSETs that go towards the subject that they're applying for. So I think they're probably going to need to pass that section of the CSET. It's difficult for the foundational ones because they're a lower level than the full authorizations, and so they're going to need to meet the CSET requirement for renewal.
If I have a teacher that holds a single subject in social science and an ESAP authorization, can they teach social science in Spanish? Oh, you know what? The next one says, correction to this question. I have a teacher that holds a single subject in social science and a ASP authorization. Can they teach social science in Spanish? And then those two go together.
Yes, BASP is the
Mhm.
bilingual Spanish.
For an out-of-country multiple subject applicant, she has a transcripts foreign transcript evaluations diploma stating that she has completed a program in NC, but the NC does not give out credentials or have anywhere those stores search policy. And one of the requirements is actual foreign country credentials. What if they don't have that?
Doesn't the leaflet say out of country credential or equivalent?
Yeah, New Zealand.
So they can just note that in the foreign transcript evaluation. And again, the commission has the final say on there. So we've submitted applications like that before. Out of countries are pretty tricky. So if we don't see like, student teaching and a lot of those things, it's kind of like, let the commission decide. But anything that's noted in the foreign transcript evaluation is good. So the more that's in there, the better. If courses are taken in English, things of that nature. So get the most detailed that you possibly can on a foreign transcript evaluation.
Do we need to submit CPR proof with foreign evaluations for out-of-country applicants?
You can, it's not required for an initial preliminary.
You can, maybe they won't add it to the requirements.
I know local assignment options were not discussed today, but what if a teacher does not want to sign the consent form to give consent to teaching a class?
If an ed code option, if a local assignment option requires consent in order to do that option and they don't consent, I mean, it's a requirement.
We recommend for a 30-day sub-permit after 7/1, but put an issuing date of 7/1 or before, and the issuing date is within the 90 days. Would the sub qualify for SB 1397?
Yes.
Can we upload the 41 NC when recommending online?
I mean, you can upload it there as it's coming, but I think they still need those as submitted via paper at this time. So
When going from a bilingual waiver to an emergency BCLAD, is target language the only way to get the EBCLAD, or can they take an equivalent course from university?
I believe coursework was, hang on. Going back to meeting that target language equivalency, again, you have multiple options to meet that. So hang on, let me go back. I have the leaflet up. So your options being passing those portions of the CSET, pass an assessment, or have a degree from a foreign institution. So let me read the question again. Yeah, you need to meet one of the target language equivalencies based on the options that are given to you. And again, you can find those listed on leaflet CL-5330-CLAD-BL, the emergency permit for CLAD and bilingual authorization permits.
How do we access your Google Drive? Would it be share?
I just added it to the chat and it'll be emailed to everyone.
What is the consent that is required for the GELAP?
So consent just means that the educator consents to serve in the assignment. You're placing them in an assignment under an authorization they do not already hold, and so they have to agree to it. And they have to agree that they are going to be seeking that authorization. So that, because you do have a limited number of issuances on a GELAP and also the SELAP. Well, actually on any of those emergency permit authorizations, you have limited issuances. And so they need to be actively working towards getting that authorization.
Can you submit a name change form when you're renewing or applying for a document on a 41-4 with the same fee?
Yeah, the name change doesn't require a fee, so you just need to submit it with all the supporting documentation. You can submit it separately or with an application.
If someone has a mild moderate, can they get a SELAP for ECSE, and what does that require?
Yes, they can, and it requires a declaration of need to be on file.
If a school nurse has a nurse license, will they need to go to a school nurse program? If yes, where can we find these programs?
Yes, they can go on the CTC dashboards where they can look to see where a school nursing program is located.
Is it true that an out-of-state teacher who taught both mild moderate and moderate severe elsewhere, and they come to California, only got one credential, only got one of the credentials, only got one? Can they now apply for the other type of credential, or do they need to get one, understanding that they will have to pay an additional $100?
So they can ask for both authorizations at the same time with one fee, or if they didn't and now they want to add and they have everything that's needed, then they would need to submit a whole new application and fee.
How many times can an SLP waiver be renewed?
Right now, there's not a limit on how many times those can be renewed, just as long as they meet or that they're showing progress. They need to show proof of progress in the program, or if they haven't gotten in a program yet and are continuing to be denied, but meet admission requirements for those programs, they just need to submit that information. But there's no limit on how many renewals at this moment.
And there will be a waiver presentation coming up, and local assignment options and all of that, so.
Applying for a third BTW, do we need an official transcript, or can they be unofficial for an educator?
Always need to be official.
And last question, you mentioned that LEAs can renew GELAP SELAPs online. We only have reissue it as an option. Is this used for renewals?
Yes.
There's no additional questions.
Okay, so that concludes the questions. Thank you, Ashley, Rosa, Stephanie, and Kristen, and Craig, our IT guy. So this is being recorded. This will be shared out within like the next month. It has to go through our PIO office and be put on YouTube and all of that. Again, if you didn't get the presentations, we'll be using the same drive for all 4 sessions. It'll be emailed out to everyone who's registered. Don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions. The next session is 5/14, and that is next Tuesday, and we are going to be presenting on, let me see here, what's next. Let's see. Why don't I? Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong file, you guys. So next week is PIPs and STIPs, waivers, and local assignment options. So I know there were some questions on those. So each one will be 40 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A again at the end. So again, thanks for joining us. Recordings will be sent out soon, and you will have the links to all the presentations. Thanks again.
Thank you.